Welcome to day 4, 25th November 2021 of the refresher course for geographers. We are dealing with geography, geographers, and geospatial technologies, all making a difference in the physical spaces, urban spaces, gendered spaces. And today, I'm so happy to introduce you to two young, dynamic geographers and spatial scientists. All-time favorite of mine, Dr. Şirin from Turkey. Today, we are going to have a major lecture by her in continuation with what Professor Mavi talked yesterday on NCR, delimitation, and what should be done, what should have been done, and the mapping and how urban areas are expanding. And that's something what Dr. Şirin is going to talk about. She's from Süleyman Demirel University, Faculty of Architecture, Department of City and Regional Planning, Turkey. I met her last year when I went to Japan, and the common point was cartography. And since then, we have been working together in two different interactive assignments dealing with women and urban scenario and gender parity in two regions. Another person who I want you all to meet is Dr. Sanjeev. He's going to give a short snippet for 15 odd minutes to tell you all, don't give up. That mantra which I actually want you all to get refreshed with. Don't give up, dear young 258 odd participants. What we ultimately need is march on. And that's something, on how to get projects, how to get funding, how to expand your CV, how to, get a great NAC rank for your institute, how to improve your own career enhancement. And of course, after PhD, what next in research? That this young boy, Sanjeev, is going to tell you. I also met him in one of this interactive forum, and I just requested Sanjeev, and you're going to get motivated. I, of course, am Seema Mehra Parihar, who you know by now. I'm your convener for this refresher course. And I basically want each one of you to actually get refreshed and motivated and definitely go with that chip on your shoulders. We geographers have to capture this world, capture different geographies, and be convinced that geography matters. Şirin, she graduated from Turkey, from the Regional Planning Department in 1991, where she also did her master's degree. Her PhD is the one that was awarded by Serahat Uzair Young Scientist and University. And then there also she was awarded the Young Scientist of the Year 2008 award. Then she's also worked at the General Directorate of the Technical Research and Implementation of the Ministry of Public Works and Settlement. So so what I'm going to tell you is that her exposure is not to be just as direct teacher, but involvement and interaction with the other positions. She worked in the temporary and permanent settlement works after the 1990 East Maramara earthquakes. And between 2000 and 2006, she worked as a general coordinator of the earthquake reconstruction foreign loans and grants, and between 2003 2006 as a branch manager of international institutions. So she has been exposed to number of applications in the urban setup. She's also served as the chairwoman of the development plan preparation and Qualification Certificate Commission between 2010 and 2014. She also has an exposure to Heritage Development Planning Department, and her basic passion, the key words that in case if I link Şirin with are uh, basic design, urban design, sustainability, urban planning, ancient land cadastry and cartography, geostamps, Asian spatial networks, etc., etc. In addition, she's also an expert in high-scale spatial planning, international and professional organizations she's associated with. We are also, both of us, in some commissions together, professional qualification of architects and engineer, service trade and WTO negotiations, pre-disaster preparedness and post-disaster preparedness plan. Why I'm reading all this? I'm simply reading all this to tell you that you all, the ones who are there, who are participating in this course, if Serene can be there in all these positions in her country, you all also can definitely be there. And of course, as we dedicate this program to Professor R.B. Singh, who has shown us that there is no place which cannot be occupied by geographers or spatial scientists. She's the president of the Technical and Polytechnic Research Development and Application Association currently, and she's also a member of the several NGOs working on women and ancient cities. So, you know, that association of both of us for women and the work and the task and all that, and making spaces more gendered is, of course, where we feel, and I feel that I'll always be associated with this young, dynamic researcher from Turkey who is going to give you the major lecture for today. She's going to speak on urbanization and recent concerns. And she's going to talk about all those things, you know, which we all have in our curriculum. Those all functions, elements, structured zones, different theories, and different facts, which are so very important. She's also going to tell you about how cities evolve and what are the major dilemmas in this sustainable time. When we're talking about sustainable development goals, we all have to keep in mind. And of course, she's also going to talk about the new, recent, introduced approaches in planning and initiatives, including green city, eco city, livable city, digital city, smart city initiatives, biophile zone, and so on and so forth. She's going to introduce you to all those particular, those generic facts, which as teacher are so very important. She's going to pinpoint modernist space, urban planning and urbanization, understanding as a basis recent concern of behavioralism. We all know that in 1970s it started, but we all also recognize in our country too, when in case if the earthquake happened also in Latu, an earthquake also happened in Gujarat. But in these two areas, people reacted in a very different way. And we all know that behavioral approach is something which is so very important in case you want to make right decision making with the people in hand. And she's going to talk about it also. Then ecological urbanism, ecological urbanization, and so on and so forth. Smart growth and smart city and the things, the terms which are associated with it: urbanization, climate sensitive urbanization, smart urbanization, and how closely there's a thin line between thinking smart, talking smart, and even implementing smartly. Urban transformation, which are all those, you know, which are talking about slow city initiative, urban renaissance, transportation network and planning smart transportation, colonization of Mars, Moon, pandemic-free urbanization will also be mentioned or detailed during the course, during that particular lecture that she's going to talk. So please listen to her lecture very carefully and learn from it, and also try to find the similarities between India and Turkey, and also get ideas on how in your setup, how in the nearby setup that you have, you all can be a part of that journey. In addition to this, of course, I'm also going to take you to meet this young boy, Sanjeev. Why I'm very fond of this? Because he never gave up. He's going to tell you about, can I get a research project? If he can get it, you all can get it. And I'm telling you with conviction myself. I've completed 14 research projects uh, from all best possible institutes they've been granted to me, including UGC, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, Ministry of Women and Child, Government of India, and of course, Ministry of Health, Government of India, and also from Embassy of Nepal, Seed Department in Department of Science and Technology. And currently, I'm doing two projects. One is Women Empowerment Atlas of India, Science and Technology Perspective. And I'm collaborating with NATMO. Dr. Tapti Banerjee is the one who we both are collaborating, and we both are joint principal investigators. There's an invited project. If an invited project can also be given to the teachers, faculty member like Seema ma'am, it can of course come to you all also. And similarly, I'm also, just trying to tell you, I'm also currently involved in a WHO project, which is dealing with mapping the best practices of those WOG institutions. And we are trying to map these best practices and document them and collecting data in newer ways, finding ways on how to involve artificial intelligence, how to involve those spatial neural networks so that we can collect data. My telesurveyors are also doing a great job. So, my friends, listen to Sanjeev. Sanjeev, a bright young geographer, he studied from Patna. Then he went to IIT Bombay for his MPhil. After that, he went to Georgia University for his PhD, but God foreseen for different reasons, he could not complete it. He came heartbroken. But then there was a bright teacher like you all, or teacher like Dr. R.B. Singh or Professor R.B. Singh, who decided to tell him that, no, Sanjeev, there is a place for a bright student like you in academia. So just join hands in that. And he did that. And today he's teaching at Raiganj University in West Bengal. He's going to briefly tell you in less than 15 minutes on his own experience and to tell you on how to take care if you get a project, how to get a project, maintaining networks, keeping ways of those guidelines that you have to follow, and all those, financial things which you have to be very particular about. And we all, the ones who've done projects, we all know one of the major part of the research project in academic institute is maintenance of grant as given by the budgets, because our academic institutions are still not ready for research grants and the fundings and how to make use of it. So we have to do a lot of things, not only academic but other things also, in case if we want to continue in getting grants. So listen definitely to Sanjeev. So I of course leave you all now with taking a promise from each one of you that you all have to closely see and listen Şirin, young faculty from Turkey, who is just like you, and Sanjeev, who is going to briefly talk with you about projects. One day, I'm also going to tell you all how to, how to negotiate, how to get projects in, again, a small short lecture, which I'll be giving you all. All right. Good luck and listen to Sanjeev and Şirin. And I am telling you that it's not very difficult to get project. But there's, once when I was not getting it, like, one day, why teachers get less projects and why NGOs are given more projects? There's one thing which we all, again, always should remember. We all teachers, when we get rejected, when we get rejected and when we feel that, like, I mean, it's like, that we have to, somebody has not given us, my idea was great, everything was great, but still, why was I not given a project? Then the next time I take a lag of 2 years, and then I further again apply for a project. Don't give up. If you don't get it, maybe, God willing, that is just not the right time. So listen to Sanjeev, listen to Şirin, get ideas, apply projects, make difference in the urban spaces. Link Şirin's lecture with yesterday's lecture of Professor Mahavir, and good luck to each one of you.
Hope you all are having a good day. Let me begin my lecture by thanking Professor Seema Mehra Parihar Madam for giving me the opportunity to interact with you all through this video module at this refresher program dedicated to Professor R.B. Singh, whose untimely demise has left a gawking hole in the discipline of geography that will be hard to fill. Over here, in next 15 minutes or so, I am here to share my experience as a new university faculty dealing with various aspects of research projects, starting from the inception of an idea to writing and defending the proposal to getting your books audited and submitting your report. However, before I divulge too much on the nuts and bolts of research grant, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Sanjeev Kumar, and after completing my master's in geography from Patna University in 2001, I went to complete my MPhil from IIT Bombay in 2004. After that, I went to the University of Georgia at Athens in the US to pursue doctoral research. Over there, I was exposed to new ways of learning as well as researching in geography. But to cut the long story short, because of multitude of reasons, I somehow slipped through the crack. And after around 7 years, that is in 2012, I returned to India without any degree and without any worthwhile academic achievement, except for one small publication in an edited volume of Sage. Once back in Patna, by now completely rejected and deserted and in verge of leaving academia for good. At this critical juncture, my old professor of geography from my days at Patna University and who had taught me in my undergraduate classes reached out to me, and it was for his sagacious guidance. It kind of rehabilitated me back to the world of geography. Although my professor is no longer a part of our yarn, but it was his kind and unconditional efforts and support that has molded students like me to their best selves. And this is a lesson that I would always like to share with my fellow academics. For now that you all are teachers, be there for your students. Especially reach out to those who, for some reason or other, is falling behind. Be the spark that would light the torch of geographical inquiry into your pupils. For in academia, it is this spark of geographical inquiry that goads us to do research in midst of our daily core of teaching, evaluation, and departmental meetings. So, besides self motivation, the next most important thing that impacts research projects is the friendship that one is able to forge amongst one's colleagues. Now, in real world, friendship between colleagues is a tricky business. For we academicians are known for our fragile egos. But trust me when I say two is better than one on the table. If you are posted in a big city or big university, then it really doesn't matter that you are working alone or in a team. For scholars that you can hire for your projects, do bring lot to the table. However, If your workplace is a small town or a small university, college, your talent pool to hire is quite small. Then collaboration with the colleagues is quite helpful, especially for the early career geographers who do not have much research experience to brag about while applying for grants. Third important point to consider for applying grants is the proposed research topic itself. Not unless you are an established researcher, it is best to read the grant proposal closely and understand what kind of research that particular grant is interested in funding, and then go on to select your research area wisely. Analogous to the issue of choice of research is writing a robust proposal with definite timeline and budget statement. That is, how much monetary support you need to complete the research in the proposed timeline. If your proposal is shortlisted to the screening committee, then you might have to face an interaction with the funding agency either in a physical form or online through Skype, Zoom, or any other such medium. In it, among other things that one should be prepared for is defending the methodology that you have proposed in your research, defending the timeline and the budget that you require to complete the project. Another point that you all can consider over here is to put your best foot forward in these face-to-face meetings. That is, in your team, find out who is the person who is best suitable to interact with the funding committee and make sure that he or she is present on the table when this interaction is going on. So the next thing which plays out is what happens once you receive the funding. And this is an important one. For let me repeat once again that all that which I'm speaking over here is based on my personal experience of being a faculty member of a non-descriptive state university based in the rural improvised section of our country. Those faculty members participating in this refresher course and have a similar background might be able to relate with my experience. However, those coming from metropolis, although will have different experience, but as far as the steps of project funding goes, they will also have to face similar kind of issues and situation. The biggest issue that comes once your project has been sanctioned by the funding agency is the timeline and how the budget is how the money is going to be spent. Say for example, if you have received funds from central government or any other such funding agencies like ICSR, UGC, from these agencies, they need that a special process of having your university, college, or institutes funding accounts to be in sync with theirs, and that take time. Moreover, the expectation of these funding agency is that you start work once your sanction letter has been issued rather than actual funds arrives in your university account. These agencies hold that once funds have been sanctioned, you will eventually receive it. So why waste time? But in reality, if your college, university, or institute has not deal with this kind of research funding, then they are not going to be supportive enough to allow you to start your preliminary work. Say, for example, a small work like spending money for putting forward advertisement in newspapers, that is not going to come from the university. You have to wait for the grants to enter the university account. So this kind of what you would say a supportive environment is very much essential for any kind of research project to be successfully implemented within the timeline. It is in this line I would remind you that these budget that the funding agency sanctions, especially from if it is coming from government, then your institute needs to go through what is called GEM, which is basically a government of India's online portal where you have to put forward your demand of buying any kind of physical goods. So the wriggling point over here is if you are spending anything less than 10,000, you can go ahead and spend it on your own. But if you have to spend anything more than 10,000, say for example, for buying a printer or buying any kind of instrument, then you have to go through the GEM, and it is a time-taking process. So these things will come up once you start with your project. On my own personal experience, the worst thing that happened was the COVID. The first and the second wave of COVID kind of eat into the timeline, and my entire project got haywire. Although ICSR was supportive enough for reforming the timeline, giving extra time, but then that was not enough. Especially if your field worker, if your research assistant gets COVID, or you yourself get COVID, then it takes hell lot of time than just 15 days or a month, which normally is sanctioned for this kind of illness or sickness. Anyway, those are extraordinary situations. The other thing that comes up, especially the problems that comes up in this kind of situation, is about the interaction that you are going to have in the field. How much supportive is the government institutions, especially the state government institutions, in providing you with the information that you require? Are they supportive enough, or are they stopping you, or they are stalling you from giving you the information? And this becomes another vital important issue on the field. Another issue that uh, becomes of equal concern is how much sensitive you are to your research participants, with whom you are going to interact in order to have the data for which you are going to do the research. So these are the issues one has to keep in mind. And the most important is to maintain the receipts of the fund that you have spent while in the field. Remember, you have to go through the auditing before you submit your complete research project, before you submit the report as well as the budget that you have spent. These things takes a lot of time, and you have to be very diligent about doing these things. For it is not just one project that you are receiving, but it is the entire timeline of work that you are going to go through while you are doing this kind of research. To conclude, let me go back against and remind you what is important. The first and foremost for doing research is your own geographical consciousness, is your own self motivation. Motivate yourself to do this research. For otherwise, you don't need to do them if you are teaching in a college, or say for example a university, because you anyway has to do all the day-to-day work which a university or college assign. So self motivation is very important. Next come to create a good team of researchers who have different skill set, so that once you are out there doing the project, you have different people who can be there for different kind of tasks. The third and foremost important thing is to interact with the team or the office or financial office of your respective institute. Make them aware of how research grants work and how research grant is important for the well-being of your college or university itself, especially in context of getting a good ranking in NAC. And, and the fourth and the most important thing is to follow the timeline that has been sanctioned by your funding agencies. Keep a good control over the budget, keep a good accounting over the budget, and do a good research. Thank you all, and I hope you all have a great day.
Hello from Turkey. I'm Assistant Professor Dr. Şirin Gülcen from Süleyman Demirel University, Faculty of Architecture, Department of City and Regional Planning. Today, in our lecture, we will be talking on urbanization, and recent concerns in three different sections. Let's start with the urban. To understand the urban issue and the concept, we must start from the city, because both concepts can be used interchangeably and there is no international agreement on their meanings. Urban means a city formed by the growth of a settlement or newly established. Urban also means that belongs to the city or the city has. Urban area in this perspective is an area where a large number of people live with a high population density and developed infrastructure. Urban areas are created by urbanization and are categorized by urban morphology. Urban morphology is a newly emerging and arising concept in the discipline of urban planning. The city is also related with the city concept is also related with the concept of civilization. And in many languages, it has different wordings. But in all, it means a human settlement. When gains certain functions, elements, and zones, it becomes urban and is called the city. It is defined as human settlements with intensive labor, capital, structure, infrastructure, and cultural accumulations. As we said, it's a human settlement, and it's a human settlement unit, which is in continuous social development and consists of small neighborhood units where the needs of the society, such as settlement, accommodation, commuting, working, resting, and entertainment are met. Few people are engaged in agricultural activities and is denser in terms of population compared to the villages. Non-agricultural production is the engine sector, and it is departing from the agricultural production producing villages or towns, and production activities outside the city borders are directed, supervised by public authorities. Its definition doesn't give the rural-urban distinction, nor reflects many quantitative and qualitative features of the urban phenomenon. The city is a settlement unit where civilized people live is a correct sentence in this line of thought. The city has a population of over an optimum size, and it is where impersonal, institutionalized, anonymous, specialized, diversified social relations are exhibited. And this optimum size changes from nation to nation. You can see from the table that in some countries, 200 people can be forming a city, where in Spain and Turkey, it's 10,000 people can form a city, at least, of course. The measures of being a city is based on the size of the population of the settlement, the purpose of use, and the administrative status of the settlement. For example, India uses the following metrics to categorize urban areas. The first one is a minimum population of 5,000. The second is at least 75% of the main working population engaged in non-agriculture pursuits. And the third, a density of population of at least 400 persons per square kilometer. Many definitions are made for the urban and the city by many philosophers, but one of them I must note. This is the Doxiadis' 15 ekistex units definition. He tried to define the city and city types, starting from the man, which is anthropos, to the ecumenopolis, which is the entire area of the earth taken up by human settlements. In his units, as you can see, from the man to room, house, hamlet, village, neighborhood, small polis, which is also the correspondence of towns, and we came to the city, which is defined by Doxiadis as 75,000 people. But after that definition to ecumenopolis, there are different types of cities, and we have to, as professions, we have to deal with these. These type of definitions can also be present with the urbanization rates. In 1950s, 30% of the world's population was living in urban areas. It is expected to be 68% by 2050, which means 3 billion urbanites by 2050 will be living in the cities. It is predicted that by 2050, about 64% of the developing world and 86% of the developed world will be urbanized. Which, in other words, we are on the way to ecumenopolis. Cities evolve and use innovation and technology to meet the needs of their people and its citizens, or to compete with others to attract investments, to provide better services and conditions of living, and to ensure that currently recognized needs and wants are met. Cities will keep on allocating new resources to meet changing requirements and prioritizing initiatives to ensure benefits are delivered. The problem is based on preserving resources for the future, so that the needs can be met while responding to changes in business models and economic circumstances. It's not wrong to state that cities are the concentration points of various problems, because while doing these old issues I have mentioned, all these issues create various problems. Many cities and their citizens face huge challenges to meet their basic needs of survival, including shelter, access to food, water, and heating. Cities have also impacts on global warming and climate change at the age of the Anthropocene. The reverse is also valid. The climate has impacts on cities. We are exercising more and more urban disasters. The cities and their urbanization promote the discussion of resilience and livability due to these irreversible impacts. And wherever we live, we are all dreaming of the countryside. Now let's look at urbanization. Urbanization is a space-related phenomenon, and it contains in itself as a concept a dualism, which is informal and formal forms of urbanization. With informal form, we just mean development without control of planning or legislations or urban plans. And informal is the development with a plan and according to the legislation, and by that can be also inspected. It has been in our lives since the antiquity, in human history since the antiquity, since the first emergence of Sumerian cities. And we exercise urbanization in different forms and patterns and layouts. And addressing the phenomenon of urbanization, the formation of theories and approaches and the development of interventions started after the 19th century. Today, it's an emerging global issue. It's becoming more and more important for our lives and future. Urbanization doesn't occur in developed and industrialized countries and developing countries under similar conditions and at the same rates. We need theory and planning approaches to analyze and to explain the current situation or to plan and to control urbanization. The urbanization level or urbanization rate of a country describes the urbanization situation at a certain date as static. This is different than urbanization movement. Urbanization movement means and it symbolizes a certain process and the change in the rate of urbanization during that time. Urbanization means the formation of the physical structure of the city through the movement of the population from the rural to the urban area, and or the growth of a settlement on itself and having urban elements, functions, and land uses. Each of the elements included in its definition from where they appear within a certain time period determines the speed, direction, and characteristics of urbanization. Urbanization is a concept that describes a process of change, just like development, growth, and modernization. Urbanization is a population accumulation process that results in the increase in the number of cities and the growth of cities in parallel with industrialization and economic development, leading to increasing organization and specialization in the social structure and urban space with changes in interpersonal relations. In other words, urbanization issue is related to the growth of cities, which geographers and planners deal with mainly in the recent years. And it means growth on itself on the periphery or in a rural empty area with urban qualities, elements, and functions. Urbanization is also a dynamic social phenomenon. Apart from the demographic and social dimensions, it's an administrative organization that creates a new formation process and the change of social structure, as well as the physical environment and economic structure taking new shapes, with the shift of the population from the agricultural sector to the service and industrial sectors. It is therefore can be defined as an increase in size, density, and heterogeneity and degree of integration as a result of the increase in the non-agricultural production rate in a settlement or in the settlements of a country and the intensification of the control and coordination of all production. We must note that besides these different definitions of urbanization, there are other characteristics of urbanization that define the concept's nature. One of them is the difference of urbanization in developed and underdeveloped countries. It's the feature that draws our attention in the urbanization of underdeveloped countries is that most of those countries, urbanization takes place without a serious industrialization. As a result, the working population is concentrated in service branches that do not contribute greatly to the economic development, and the unemployed and the underemployed have become the defining feature of the economy. It is widely believed that urbanization in developing countries is mostly fed by migrations from villages to cities. But we must stress that um, besides immigration, there are increases as a result of natural increases, and these form the urbanization process in developing countries. Different levels of development and tools of control creates an unplanned, unhealthy, and unbalanced urbanization in one country, and planned, healthy, and balanced urbanization in another one. So which one is going to be emerging is related to the level of development and tools of control or inspection implied, and urban planning, and the urban plan to be implemented in the correct way, so that we can get better balanced and healthy planned urbanization. There is another issue in the nature of the concept. This is rapid urbanization. It is the most complex and important socioeconomic event of the cities of the last 2 centuries. Not only developing countries or less developed countries has exercised or underdeveloped countries exercise this, but developed countries have also exercised this. Rapid urbanization causes housing demand in huge numbers in short periods of time, illegal construction and construction contrary to zoning, increase in housing areas of low-income people, insufficient and overloaded infrastructure and services, formation of informal sector and industrial areas, disasters, and air pollution are the main outcomes. We see mass housing where there is rapid urbanization. There is also urban infills, transformations, and destructions in more developed countries. And in all of them, there is a demand for urban planning and for developing methods to solve urban problems where the geographers interfere. We must also explain about sustainable development and urbanization. Sustainable development is an economic issue, but sustainable urbanization has other dimensions. It's a process of obtaining or maintaining an urban infrastructure and superstructure and order equipped with adequate urban functions and elements and necessary urban land uses created. In the urbanization process, it is expected that all kinds and scales of urbanization activities will make people live in a healthy environment. The city will cause the least damage to the nature and contribute to sustainability by using resources effectively and efficiently. It is considered that resilient and livable cities will ensure their sustainability at the same time. There are 3 elements come to the fore in the definitions of sustainable urbanization. The first one is to overcome the problem of increasing the quality of life in the human-city relationship, the use of the common areas of the city, and the procurement of public services. The second is to strengthen the ability of the city to continue its existence as a settlement. And the third and the last one is the city should be questioned on the basis of the existing production and consumption patterns in the use of environmental resources beyond its capacity and in the transformation of resources. So there appear several principles. We can list them as follows. Protection of ecological balance in the use of natural resources, preservation, protection, and development of cultural assets, creation of risk-free, healthy, safe, and qualified living environments, access to safe drinking water, adequate infrastructure and transport, equality of opportunity in benefiting from public services, economic, social, and cultural development at the local level, social solidarity and a culture of integration, addressing urban poverty and inequalities, preservation and development of local culture and identities, urban form, transportation system, and renewable energy use to reduce the effects of climate change, dynamic, attractive, and competitive cities. And lastly, before closing the section, I must note an important difference, which is between urbanism and urbanization. We can start with Duyguler's explanation of urbanism. He says that urbanism is an important issue as it is somewhat static, theoretical, and directly affecting human life. Urbanism is a philosophy and understanding for the creation and regulation of the vital relations and functions of a human settlement. It means interventions and actions of various types and scales, a process and structuring by development. It covers urban structuring and development activities like urban planning and design services, public works and improvements activities, municipal activities, and inspection activities. Urbanism includes the use of technology and planning activity for intervention. If healthy, it is expected that it will enable the formation of socio-psychological healthy urbanites. The concept of urbanism, although it seems to be a French origin, is actually a concept introduced by the Spanish urban planner Ildefonso Cerda in his book of 1867, Urbanization. We are going to talk about recent concerns in this section and the following section, because today there are a lot of concerns, which means different approaches and definitions, and we're going to look at these in this section. But to understand and to evaluate today's approaches, we must start with the modernist space, urban planning and urbanization understanding, which means some of the, although we just left these understandings, some of our today's concerns are based on these understanding. As you know, modernist space is defined by Le Corbusier and later Siam and Tintin archigram approaches. And we have the Charter of Athens, which is the manifesto of the modern planning and architecture, which shaped our cities universally. In other words, universally accepted planning approaches, which led to globally uniform architecture, housing estates, and suburban sprawl. And I must note that after postmodernism, since then, we don't have a universally accepted planning approaches. That's why we are going to look at today too many approaches at the same time. What was the main defining factor of the modernist planning approach was the zoning principle, or the theory of zoning. Zoning means the idea that social problem areas will be resolved by carefully reorganizing the city, uplifting and separating functions. As you may see from the two examples of American cities, which has applied zoning in their planning perspectives, implementations very well. Just structured the space separately for different land uses. But there was another issue of the modernist planning, which is the megaforms and utopias. What do we mean by megaform? It is defined as a single huge three-dimensional structure. Roads and reinforcements are complementary to this structure. Houses, factories, office groups are in great texture. The open space of the city are designed to be located on the roofs, terraces, and balconies. Storage, vehicle parking lots, and vehicle passages, automation, production, waste processing take place in the dark subspace of the structure. This idea is proposed to live at very high density, to accommodate future population growth and to protect the countryside. There are many and different forms of ideas regarding the great structures that are described as utopia for today. But I must also note that this idea is the one that structured the cities we are living in. The examples we will see for the in order to make you understand what I mean. I mean, today's cities are shaped by these understandings. It's an example from Santa Elia, Antonio Santa Elia's industrial city, and which he belongs to the futurist group, and it was a proposal of 1912 and 1940 between. And now we can see similar constructions in our cities. As mega structures and utopias, maybe not utopia here, Brazil, of Le Corbusier. And this is not, this is a mega structure, not an utopia. And we see a contemporary city for 3 million people by Le Corbusier. It's a neighborhood plan. And Brazil plan, again, in 1956 by Le Corbusier. You can see the mega structures here. And another architect and urban planner, Kenzo Tange's linear development proposal for Tokyo Bay is the megastructures, and also Paolo Soleri's archaeology is an important stepstones to mention, because Paolo Soleri's archaeology will be the basis of the ecological city we will be talking today. This is Kenzo Tange's proposal for the bay, Tokyo Bay, but it wasn't realized. It was a competition, and another architect's project was implemented. You can also here see the plan of Tokyo for 1960, and Skopje winning competition entry. And today's Tokyo is like this. You can see the mega structures everywhere, and they are created on sea. They are earthquake resilient, and this is modern architecture. But this is our cities today. This is Paolo Soleri's archaeology. And an experiment was done in Arizona, USA, between 1970 and 1989. And archaeology is used synonymously with ecological architecture, sorry. And this is another proposal by Soleri in Leon Linear City. As you may see, megastructure composing the outer rural countryside to the city inner side, which is sensitive to environment, and it has ecological dimension. But these are not the only utopias or proposals. There is also Buckminster Fuller's cities in giant balloons, and Richard Meyer's cities floating in the oceans as a system that produces its own energy from the sun, food and raw materials from the sea. And these are important because these are the proposals that shape today's concerns. As you know, postmodernism started by, it's the first time a starting point can be given to an architectural and urban planning idea change. It is where Charles Jenks names it 15 July 1972, when a few buildings of the Put Ego housing project was dynamited and destructed, and it is officially the day a modern architecture died, because it was criticized of being megastructures and utopias. But the problem is that although high-rise mass modular buildings are made, the connection between people are cut. That's why they are criticized, and the relations the city must have are damaged by this kind of architecture. And it's not safe, because people must walk long distances in green areas, and this may create security problems. After many criticisms, postmodernism came out, but this is a different approach that is giving importance to flexible production, and this is related to capital, and it's organized in a way that will increase the profitability and of the multinational capital. I mean, the relations of the modern time era is changing. And there are also now different thoughts about postmodernism, some saying that it is ended, some saying that postmodernism is still going on, and another thought is saying that there's no postmodernism. So in any way, this era is the era of the cities, and after the Put-Igor destruction, a different line of thought and different implementations came, and it's certain that there's no universally accepted approach. So we can call it a different era and postmodernism. But if it's passed or not, it's still in discussion. Arguments such as competing localities, governance, and information society have been put forward. And there are competing localities model is implemented, and this required to add new capital and human resources to its competitive environment. And in order to include local forces that want to profit from the current process in the cycle of the world economy, social and economic problems in national and local terms are faced. There is a concern that local governments transfer their functions and services in many areas to private capital. Public interest and serving for the public good is left to the market, and borrow from international markets, try to attract capital to their own regions, try to market their local uniqueness and be seen in the media. Because modernism was criticized also for denying the local, denying the human and denying the local. In this competitive environment, rapid growth in emerging sectors is largely the result of the demands of the global community and is seen in every metropolis. And there came the, in this era, the postmodern space, as a metropolis develops, the city's poor population increases. So the space use relations are changing. There is a fragmentation in which spatial segregation deepens, social polarization and urban tensions rise too much. In the fragmentation created by the metropolitanization, while certain parts of the city develop by attracting investment, services, and other material opportunities, the rest of them are more decentralized and impoverished than in previous periods. The same is valid for the distribution of cities within a country. And there came the concept of the others, but I see it as a problem. And sociology became more close to urban science and started to work together. We see collage in every action, in every architecture planning activity. And the defining motto of the cities became the maximization of rent. All actions were done for this. And when you look at the difference, we see very different notions, from high-tech corridors to multinodal structure, from ethnic diversity to project-based development, which brings itself a flexible space and fragmentation in the city. We see mixed and complex uses at the same time. It was before with zoning, it was separated. And we just started to implement these approaches to the city that was structured by the modern architecture and planning ideas. One important outcome was the fragmented planning, where the plan became as a tool of the market and the administrator or the decision maker. And we see before that, we were seeing production of production spaces and its production, but now we see reproduction of consumption spaces, which means more malls, more commercial areas, more housing units to be provided to the market. And another important step was anthropometrism. Anthropometry means the measurement of man, because the modern architecture and planning just left the human. And now most of our recent concerns are sensitive to human and the human scale. We are just seeing that a line against modernism is determined by a newly emerging postmodern ideology called this. Opposing the idea of large-scale design, which is the principle of the modernist design, is the postmodernist search for a human scale of design. This is the fourth time since Vitruvius, Leonardo, and Le Corbusier. This is the first time human dimensions are searched for in human history. Urban transformation projects were also handled with the same logic. Today, the biggest reason for the failure of urban transformation projects is that they are not considered together with the city as a whole, and they want to bring an understanding of finding solutions to the problematic areas of the city. However, although the aerial dimension of the project is kept small in relation to anthropometrics, the size of the structures in the project, on the contrary, are messes that exceed the human dimension. I mean, there's also criticism. So this postmodernism era brought a very distinctive change of space and architecture structures. We can see these kind of interpretations, or this kind of interpretations where the right is lost, what is right is not known, and where everything can be made, everything can be provided to the market. And so our cities, after the architecture, became restless urban landscapes, and the plans become far from aesthetics. Or like this, what is the city is lost definition totally. But it is different, as you can see. So we can just move on to the recent concerns, which are the reactions to partially to modernism, postmodernism, global warming, climate change, and COVID-19. We can list them as behaviorism, new urbanism, ecological urbanism, resilient urbanization, smart urbanization, organic urbanization, urban renewal, hybrid urbanization, slow city initiative, transportation networks and planning, which also brings in itself the smart transportation, colonization of Mars and the Moon, gentrification, green urbanism, sustainable urbanism, climate-sensitive urbanization, livability and habitability, urban transformation, industrial urbanism, urban renaissance, and pandemic-free urbanization. We will going to evaluate some of these because of the time limit, but I must stress that use of RS and GIS, spatial analysis, digital modeling for planning and disaster management, smart urbanization implementations are increasing with all these concerns. And this brings in itself the importance of city planning and urban geography disciplines. We also observe aerial and mobile map data, deep learning, and machine learning, which are very important in order to solve the problems of the city and to implement these concerns. And these concerns bring out several concepts of the city, which are, according to the ideology, is given name. For example, sustainable city, green eco city, ecological city, low carbon cities, livable city, digital city, generic city, smart city, bibliophilic zones, resilient cities, shrinking cities, slow city, or Sitta slow, the edge city, competing cities, brand cities, Iotropolis, megalopolis, cyber cities, virtual cities, and lastly, space, moon, and Mars settlements. Let's start with gentrification. What we mean is the high income white collar is investing to settle in historical and valuable sites of the city centers. And the poor and low income is living in those areas in the periphery. And as the rich comes in, the poor goes out to cheaper areas. In parallel, in the cities, it's not a gentrification, but we also exercise another approach. This is the rich is creating in the periphery gated communities, because they are in need of security. But this implementation is getting lesser because when they went out of to the periphery, they after some time found out that there is no city there, so they just came in and stressed and supported gentrification. And this is done by many methods. but most important are increasing house and rental prices, high prices in shopping venues, and urban transformation projects. And we have many areas, neighborhoods in our cities that is in this situation, which once the city's periphery, but when the city grow, they are now in the transition zones, which are very close to the city center. And when it's transformed, they can be very valuable lands. New urbanism is another main concern, which is also universally, internationally accepted concept. Corresponding concept is compact city. It is a movement recognized at the New Urbanism Congress in around 1990. And the meeting practitioners came together to find an alternative solution to suburban sprawl and developed a design-oriented approach. There are many supporters of this, but I'm not giving all the details. You can later look at the texts, the videos, and it is built on, this approach is built on sustainable urbanism approach. The concept of smart city has also developed on the basis of this concept. This approach brings human actions and land use closer together, increases the density of urban developments, becomes more effective in infrastructure provision and transportation energy use, and provides access to urban service and public spaces within walking distance. Its main aim is to create healthy and happy lives. Urban design is the main activity, and creating neighborhoods within a 5 minutes walk is just the human scale anthropomorphism, I can't say, sorry, just brought into here. And it can be applied to new settlement areas, urban areas or revitalization areas, urban infill it must be. It can be applied to many places of all scales, and public spaces and like streets are becoming more important. And design application is supported. Design is critical to the function, is seen critical to the function of the society. Appropriate design elements makes places greater than the sum of their parts. Underdeveloped and overlooked places are of special interest. We here can see some examples like Sweden. New urbanism is mainly implemented in North Europe and America. And Sweden is the one that created a new urbanist, eco-friendly new town near Malmö, Jacques Riborg. And here they aim to create sustainable urban environments with long-lasting structures, buildings, and a great livability of its inhabitants. We can also say this kind of understanding as walkable urbanism, where circular flow land use management is implemented. And again, to stress the sustainable construction is important. And these trend and new urbanism trend has started around 1980s. We can see the chart of the new urbanism that came out in 1993. I have given the internet links here. You can evaluate. Here you can see the region, neighborhood, metropolis, city, town, district, and corridor, building island, street, and building. And it has all principles for this. There are also criticisms, which is, it came out as a reaction to modernism, but it is also implementing the form of the city that is in the 19th century, which they are trying to apply to the 21st century. It is criticized for rejecting economic diversity, not offering solutions in scale, transportation, planning and zoning, regionalism and marketing. As it is too focused on transport and excessive individual mobility, it is losing its regional scale and correct understanding. Also, land use planning can do little to achieve sustainability without regulating the design and associated technology of the actual development within a zoned area. Distances and density are relatively unimportant for this understanding. The emphasis needs to shift from sustainability to resilience and the spatial scope from the city to the whole urban region. With another criticism is that the new urbanist project of compacting urban form is difficult and slow process. But there's rapid urbanization. Another concern is smart urbanization, which uses technology, combines energy, mobility and infrastructure, increases performance and efficiency, increases the participation of citizens, enables innovation and improves the social and economic fabric of the city. For the planning and implementing smart city solutions, performance measurement is one key component. So we see for both sustainability and smart urbanization, many indices created. There is also a difference between the smart city performance and smart city project level. I'm passing quickly. Now we can speak about 100 smart growth laws that has been defined in the 27 states of the USA. Smart Growth Network, the strongest advocacy group, mainly based in the USA again, but many cities and many countries are supporting their cities to become smart cities, but this is a very huge task and it's costly and needs a lot of effort. So we cannot speak of smart cities at the moment in most of the Europe and Asia, but there are efforts for this. There are several objectives of this. For instance, improvement of quality of life, better services for the city to the citizens, creation of an innovative, competent, and highly skilled jobs in a city. Sustainable cities is another concern. Where is what is this? It's the process of meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. These cities is environmentally sensitive cities, and environmentally, economic, and social dimensions can be controlled and planned with a participatory process. This is important. And the cities, according to my view, can offer a certain level of space and service quality to their residents and have an advanced level of relationships systematic, have a smart infrastructure designed and established, and have a low carbon footprint. It is the habitat where there is a positive relationship between economy and ecology in order to create sustainable social development. Another one is green urbanism and ecological urbanism. Both approaches are similar to each other, but there are slight differences. Green urbanism is based on 000 frameworks: zero fossil fuel use, zero waste, and zero emissions. Green urbanism is also an effort that shapes more sustainable places, communities, and lifestyles. Ecological urbanism is a more sociologically inclusive and environmentally conscious effort. The said effort requires an environmentally integrated and sustainable urban planning approach. Ecocity is a self-sustaining, flexible structure and a healthy human settlements modeled as a function of natural ecosystems. It's again emerged around 1990s. Green cities provide clean air, resist natural disaster, public transportation, everything necessary for becoming green. And they encourage ecological behavior, and green cities networks, European green cities, green solar regions, green city building are some of the projects or teams and initiatives we can note. Low carbon cities are trying to harmonize their development policy with a low carbon economy in order to reduce their energy consumption and carbon dioxide emissions, aiming to create a low carbon city. Highlighting building technologies and raising ecological awareness for low carbon emissions are the actions done or initiatives, programs done. And in these cities, non-motorized transportation is adopted or supported. Resilient urbanism is the urbanization of settlements that can struggle to meet the basic needs of their citizens, to overcome the problems faced, or to recover from any damage given. We can also say that resilient cities are, if realized, are sustainable cities. Livability and habitability is a new concern raised by the European Union. They are different, but the main determining approaches to this urbanization. Livability describes the frame conditions of a decent life for all inhabitants of cities, regions, and communities, including their physical and mental well-being. This approach is based on the principle of sustainability and smart urbanism, and thus sensitive to nature and the protection of resources. Habitability is found from the main idea of all historical settlements to be located on the most habitable location, and it is a quality of being good enough to live in. Livable cities is making the city to be livable for all sections of the society, like elderly, disabled, and children. They can have easy access to services, and it defines a bridge for Salzona. It's a bridge between the past and the future, which respects history and provides a healthy living space for future generations. Why respecting to history? Because it's the memory of the and it's the identity of the people living in that city. A livable city is also a sustainable city. Slow cities, which also we refer Sitta Slow, has been present since 1999, and now in 31 countries, 272 settlements are registered. It's an alternative approach in terms of sustainable urban development in the face of globalization and standardization trends. It brings out 50 commitments, and the settlements must obey these commitments, and their population must be under 50,000. And we must stress that they are protecting their own characteristic pattern, relations, and layout form in order to be defined as slow city, Sitta Slow. Digital cities approach has come to the fore with the idea of associating new technologies with the city. It's kind of a smart city, but digital discussed in the unity of urban information systems in virtual space an urban space equipped with technological tools. Digital cities are the cities where you use mobile interfaces with the real public in real connection with the public services. And the citizens' ability to benefit from the possibilities of electronic service and digital information has been increased. Urban Renaissance is a movement mainly in England, but didn't find many supporters, and in it came out with an urban task force report on sustainable city, aims to make the city work, revitalizing urban values, investment opportunities, and the sustainability of the Renaissance movement. We also see after the Second World War, mainly in the European cities, urban renewal ideology, which has been enlarging to less developed or developing countries due to poverty, transformation of the poverty areas, and transformation of the transition zones. We can also see transportation networks and planning smart transportation, because transportation is a very huge problem for many cities over polis of the Doxiadis definition. And our cities are growing, and technology is interfering in size and scale, and its spatial structure is transforming, and we cannot now define the zoning understanding of the modern era, but now we have vertical streets, different commercialized space, which is production, not production, but consumption spaces in terms of housing even. And we are just becoming more digitalized and more mechanic, but the problem is we are getting more far away from aesthetics, and we have a low level road to the future cities, but our geographies is changing. For example, the colonization of Mars and Moon, which means the habitability of other galaxies, is meaning that our geography of the Earth is not anymore our intention of planning or analyzing, special analyzing, or creating solutions to problems. And the COVID-19 has created the question of pandemic-free urbanization, but nobody has declared a certain idea for this. Only design, urban design, and basic design thinkers are working on this. And we still don't know how to create a pandemic-free cities and urbanization. And to conclude, management, planning, and design approaches of the cities of the new century should differ from their approach and geographies. Basic concepts of the new approaches focused on people and cities should cover the concepts of cooperation, innovation, life design, and project democracy. The knowledge of urban planning and geography and the use of technology is a must. That's why we need well-trained urban planners and geographers, and this course is for this. Thank you. Have a nice time. Bye-bye.